I'm going to close that. How are you doing? I'm just hoping that you can see me okay and hear me okay. I had a little message came up, so I'm just going to click that off. And I hope you're okay. And we're here for lives. I didn't put an advert on to say I was coming today, but I am. I'm always going to try and be here on Friday afternoon as much as possible and do some reconnective healing with you. So we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about, and perhaps the week that we've had. I've got some ideas of what I want to talk about today. It's been a bit of a crazy week, hasn't it? I was thinking about truth. I was going to call this, I might still call this video, When Two Truths Go to War. Remember there was a Frankie Go to Hollywood song called Two Tribes? When two tribes go to war, a point is all that you can score. And I think the same for two truths. And I'm thinking about different versions of truth and just how it's all part of this matrix experience of trying to confuse us and divide and rule, divide us into camps of which version of truth we believe in. And thinking about what is the challenge for us, and what are we being called to do? To choose a tribe or to rise above it and to refuse to work, to cooperate with that program. And I think that's really the answer, to recognize that this is a temporary earthly experience, and to compromise on the higher vision. The higher vision, of eternal truths. You know, we used to say, truth will out. You know, when you found that someone was getting away with something they shouldn't get away with, you thought, well, truth will out. It'll all come out in the wash. And there is a suggestion that one day justice or vindication will happen. And that's what we're told, and that's what we tell ourselves. And then something plays out, and instead of that happening, the story just changes. The narrative that's being told kind of recalibrates itself, and so you never quite get that vindication. You never quite get to that place of feeling that justice is done, or that everything's fair, and that at last we're dealing with something, everything is transparent and out in the open. Vibrational and low energy. And what came to me today was just this image of the two camps that we talked about last week, about the blue and red, or red and blue, just as two colours that are often you or female, or cultural, social, political colours. And whatever it is, whatever the thing is that's going to ask what your opinion is and where you stand for or against, that will try to divide us. We're going to do a little meditation in a moment where we visualize this bringing together, refusing to choose the camp, refusing to separate and be divided, and reconnecting. And I'm going to lead you through that. But I also want to, let me just see who's here today. Hi Mark. Hi Noelle. Nice to see you. Oh yeah, the lovely frequencies. We're going to experience the higher, purer frequencies, and some white light, the light that dispels the darkness. It's all vibrational. It's all vibrational. Hello from Holland. Hello, nice to meet you. That's lovely. I'm going to tell you about a book first of all. You know, this same week when a lot of sort of madness was happening, on both sides of the Atlantic, actually. I was thinking it's so strange, because if you didn't believe in the archetypal stuff, you have to really think again, don't you, when you get these archetypes that are powerful, these trickster energies, trickster archetypes, and they emerge, they show up at the same time. This is all connected to this psycho-spiritual stuff we've been doing, with the Pistis Sophia, with talking about the archons and how what shows up in the material world is a reflection of the psyche or the soul. And that isn't about all these billions of people in the world having separate souls and separate worlds that are being created. It's somehow that we're all in this experience of worldly reality, earthly 3D reality, and somehow the psyche is one. And that's what, it sounds preposterous. It sounds as though it goes against everything that we've been led to believe, taught to believe. And yet, this is the experience we have when we do reconnective healing. So what shows up in the world is a reflection. And the trickster energies are there to get us to stir us up, to get us to look at ourselves. But there is certainly, what struck me this week is just the symmetry on your side of the Atlantic, those of you in the US, and here in the UK. Some of you are from other places, so you may be out of it a little bit. But we've got patterns that repeat. And at the same week that I was thinking all this book arrived. And I'm going to talk really briefly about the book, because I want to take us into some reconnective healing. But the book is called Aurora Consurgens. It's not a particularly attractive book. Look, just grey cover. But this book is so precious, and precious to me. I can remember a dear friend of mine, a friend called Dawn, I have spoken about her before, mentioning this book, and it had all gone from my memory. And only very recently, in the last few weeks, it came back to my awareness. I'm sure it's because she's talking to me. I'm sure it's because she's still, around. And the name Aurora Consurgens, I think it means rising dawn, and her name was Dawn. And so she had a real connection to this book, and she'd been gifted a copy of it by someone really important to her in her life. But I didn't really take a lot of notice at the time, until now, as pieces are starting to come together, because this book is a document attributed to Thomas Aquinas on the problem of opposites in alchemy. It's a rare book. I'll talk about it more another time, but you will have heard of Thomas Aquinas. And Thomas Aquinas was the theologian that pretty much is attributed for the whole of the Catholic theology, basically. A philosopher and theologian in medieval times, who brought together all the understanding that became Catholic orthodoxy doctrine. And so, there's volumes and volumes and volumes of stuff he wrote, theology, and priests are trained in Aquinas, and it's from Aquinas that we have Thomism for Thomas, Thomism, which is the orthodox theology of Catholicism, traditional Catholicism. And yet, on his deathbed, he famously said, "All I have written is but straw." He had this vision while he was dying, and he people downplay that. The church, of course, downplays that. They just say, well, he was in delirium or whatever, because he was losing his mind, he wasn't really fully conscious. But nevertheless, it's well documented that he said those words, and that's fascinated me. And then I discover, or I remember, that there was apparently he wrote all his thoughts and on a vision he had that was very similar to the Songs of Solomon, the wisdom texts of Solomon in the Old Testament. And he had a new understanding of it and wrote it all down. And this was suppressed, but there were copies of it in Latin, and then there were, a number of different translations of it into German. and different sources of it. And anyway, it's all been brought together, and you can get hold of a copy of it, but it's very rare to get hold of a copy of it. And something prompted me to go online and try and get hold of a copy, and this was delivered today, and I've got my own copy, and I just know that this is going to give us, because what it's about is somehow bringing these this problem of the polarities that I just talked about, and how we work through. And what really Thomas Aquinas was doing in those early days was he was doing psychotherapy. He was doing sort of depth psychology long before psychology was even a thing. And Jung was particularly interested in what he was saying. And so this book is by a lady called Marie-Louise von France, who was a contemporary of Jung, worked closely with Jung. But I just want to read a little bit of this, and then we're going to go into let me just see what his name's called. I'm Catholic. It's really cool to say. Yeah, it's almost like giving you an opportunity to go back to the authority and learn from the teacher. But of course, it can't be proven that he was the author of it. But there are a lot of biblical references. There are a lot of references. I won't go into detail. A lot of references that would place it around his time, and that are very scriptural and biblical, but also with a reference to contemporary sort of alchemists as well. So anyway, this is wisdom speaking, and I just want to read it to you, and I just hope that these words will touch you in some way, because I think that they'll speak at a deeper level. Yeah, unifying there's some alchemy that happens at a deeper level through meditating on these words, which I know I will be doing, and I'll be bringing to you all that I'm learning from them. But just to quote from it today just seems important. So he says, all good things come together with her, and the her he refers to as wisdom. So in the Old Testament, wisdom with a capital W. All good things come to me, together with her, that wisdom of the south, who preacheth abroad, who uttereth her voice in the streets, crieth out at the head of the multitude, and in the entrance of the gates of the city uttereth her words, saying, come to me and be enlightened, and your operations shall not be confounded. All ye that desire me shall be filled with my riches. Come therefore, children, hearken to me, I will teach you the science of God. Who is wise and understandeth this? Of which Alphidius saith, that men and children pass her by daily in the streets and public places, and she is trodden into the mire by beasts of burden and by cattle. And Senior saith, naught more base in appearance than she, and naught is more precious in nature than she. And God also hath not appointed her to be bought for a price. Doesn't this speak to something transcendent? When we're in an age where everyone has a price, everyone can be bought for a price. Truth can be bought for a price. It can be traded for, it's a commodity. And I just wanted to bring the energy of that into today, and lead you now into a meditation where we reject the way of the world. It's talking there about wisdom being trodden in the streets, trodden by the cattle underfoot, not recognised in the real things, in the base things, in the things of our everyday life. So much more teaching to get from that. But for now, come. And with me, step out of the story. This is what I always invite you to do, to step out of the small story And some of what I have said will relate to something that in your own life, something about those choices and the different narratives. And you might naturally find yourself here. You know, when you're functioning at that world, you know, everyday life, mentality, consciousness, you'll find yourself here. But it means that others are over there, and so we know that we're separated. And so just be conscious of that now and step out of that story. Step out of that story where you are here and the other is there. And maybe even visualizing the red and blue as we did last week, and just bringing those together to create the purple, the crown chakra opening for higher consciousness. Because rather than choosing here or there, we choose up. And if your starting point is here or there and you're going up, then we will converge at the apex. We will have union at the apex where we meet. And maybe visualize that joining together as being like a dove descending from above, bringing Holy Spirit, bringing a white light. Maybe visualize it as the bride, wisdom, stepping forward all dressed in white, offering you a white lily, a symbol of peace, as is the dove. And let's just receive in that place of unity and love and light. wonder if you feel the change in vibration as we activate the frequencies. As we step out of the small self and remember the soul story. Story of my soul is the story of your soul. We're all just returning home. And yet while still in the body we can experience that oneness, that wholeness, that completeness. That the world just leaves us always yearning for some elusive peace, resolution, completeness that it can never deliver. Promises that are empty, that are always just out of reach. And so don't be fooled by the stories, by the heroes and villains who become heroes, and one day one thing, the other day the next, depending on how the story is spun. Just right above it all, put your trust in something higher, transcendent, in that eternal truth that is our oneness. This ground of being we all share. This is what enlightenment is. It's knowing that. It's waking up to that truth. It's not waking up to a story of what's really happening, because that's just duality, that's just low vibrational stuff. It's waking up to the wonder of unity. Unity consciousness. And knowing that the nature of that unitive field, ground of all being, is love. And there's nothing to fear. Don't be alarmed. Don't listen to the stories, that cause you to lose your grounding, your peace. Just come home to the truth of who you really are. And I hope that this little time of holding space together has helped you to feel more complete and safe and at peace and reconnected. Hi. Whether it's the stories that are international stories, national stories, regional or personal, that it's all stories, isn't it? In some ways, sometimes what's in the macrocosm is just mirrored, in the microcosm of your life, and it plays out at different scales, doesn't it? Yeah. Morning, Django. Hi, Rick. Nice to see you. And to everybody who is watching later, I know that you will watch the playback, and many of you watch later, so all my love to you, and say hi in the comments, let me know what's happening for you, and let me know your thoughts on anything that I said about the book. I'm going to be studying it, not just academically. I mean, it is an academic book. You've got like half of it, only the top part of it is the translation, then you've got the translation from Latin here, and then the bottom half of each page is all the commentaries. So it's but I think it's exciting finding something and really searching for the pearl, the treasure hidden in the field. And I'm sure that it was inspired that I got myself a copy of that book. I was lucky to, because it's normally very expensive. and I just happened to see one that was sort of okay, reasonably affordable, and got myself one. So I'm pleased with that, and I'll be sharing it with you. So all my love, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now. God bless.